They say you can't choose who changes your life. Sometimes it's a person you least expect. Tonight's story is about a billionaire who thought he had everything until the woman he hired taught him what he was missing. A story about power, pride, and the kind of love that saves more than just a heart. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Someone out there needs to hear it tonight. Now, take a breath, and let's begin. Rain hammered against the glass walls of Hale Industries as Elena Morales clutched her resume like a lifeline. She was 20 minutes early but already drenched, heart racing with the kind of fear only desperation breeds. Inside, everything gleamed. Steel, marble, and silence. Then came his voice, cold and precise. "You're late." Nathan Hale stood by the window, tall, controlled, a man used to obedience. She met his eyes and didn't blink. "I'm not," she said. The corner of his mouth twitched, amusement or annoyance. She couldn't tell. "You're confident," he said, circling her like a puzzle he wanted to solve. "Confidence without skill is arrogance." "Then you'll have to decide which one I am," she replied. He stopped behind her, close enough for her to feel his presence but not his warmth. He didn't expect her to challenge him. He expected her to fear him. And that, she realized, was why she was already different. When she spoke about her work, her precision, her loyalty, her discipline, his expression barely shifted. But something in her voice, a tremor between pride and pain, made him pause. He'd interviewed hundreds of assistants, none who looked at him like that. Her eyes didn't see power. They saw the man behind it, the exhaustion he hid too well. For a second, he almost asked why she needed this job so badly. But questions were dangerous. He didn't ask. The meeting ended with silence thick enough to break. "You'll start Monday," he said finally. No smile, no handshake. Just the quiet certainty of a man who never hired anyone without a reason. As she turned to leave, thunder cracked above the city, shaking the glass. "Miss Morales," he added, voice low, "you'll find I don't tolerate mistakes." She looked back, calm and steady. "Neither do I." For the first time in years, Nathan Hale almost smiled. Elena's first day began before sunrise. The city was still half asleep when she stepped into the marble lobby, heels echoing through the emptiness. Nathan's office sat like a glass fortress above Manhattan, cold, immaculate, untouchable. He didn't greet her when she entered, only motioned toward a stack of folders taller than her confidence. "You'll organize these by noon." His tone was casual, but the challenge wasn't. She smiled. "Consider it done." Hours passed, and she worked like the world owed her peace she'd never received. Nathan watched from behind the frosted glass, the way she moved, precise, quiet, relentless. There was something unsettling about her calm. Most people shrank under pressure. She sharpened. He caught himself wondering who had taught her that kind of resilience and why she needed it. He didn't like questions without answers, especially about her. At lunch, the office emptied, but Nathan stayed. "You don't take breaks?" he asked, half curiosity, half command. "Breaks are for people who can afford to stop," she replied without looking up. That answer hit harder than she intended. His chest tightened, not from anger, but recognition. He saw in her the same hunger he'd buried years ago. And that scared him, because hunger, he knew, could burn down empires if left unchecked. When the day ended, she left her desk spotless, files aligned like soldiers. Nathan passed by, glancing at her work, then at her. "Efficient," he said simply. "You'll last longer than most." She turned, eyes unwavering. "I'm not here to last," she said. "I'm here to matter." The words lingered after she was gone, echoing in the silence of an office that hadn't felt alive in years. For the first time, Nathan Hale didn't want to leave. By Friday, the walls between them had turned into glass, visible, fragile, impossible to ignore. Elena worked late, unaware that Nathan was still in his office, watching her through the reflection of city lights. She wasn't just efficient. She was meticulous, graceful under pressure. But when her phone rang and she went pale, something changed. She ended the call quickly, but not before he heard the tremor in her voice. "Everything okay?" he asked. Her composure cracked for just a second. "It's fine," she said, too quickly. He recognized a lie. He'd used that same tone for years. Go home, he ordered, softer this time. But she stayed, finishing her task with a kind of focus that looked like survival. When she finally left, Nathan found himself standing by her desk, staring at the half-empty coffee cup she'd forgotten. It felt oddly personal, like a secret she hadn't meant to leave behind. Later that night, while reviewing reports, he saw her emergency contact on a form, Miguel Morales. Brother. Hospital. The dots connected too easily. She hadn't just needed this job. She was fighting for someone. He leaned back, feeling something he didn't want to name. Guilt, maybe, or admiration. The line between respect and concern had blurred, and he didn't know when it happened. All he knew was that he wanted to see her smile again. The next morning, she arrived early as always. Nathan greeted her with coffee, the same brand she brought every day. She blinked, surprised, but said nothing. You look tired, he said casually. So do you, she replied. For a heartbeat, they stood there, two people hiding exhaustion behind pride. Then she smiled, just a little. And for the first time, he realized that the sound of her laughter could undo everything he'd spent years building. The tension began with something small, a missed meeting, a forgotten call. But with Nathan, small mistakes carried heavy consequences. You're distracted, he said, voice low, sharp as glass. Elena didn't flinch. I'm human. Not in this office, he snapped. The words hit harder than he meant. Silence filled the space between them, charged and fragile. Then she said quietly, if you want a machine, hire one. And walked out before he could reply. He stared at the door long after it closed. No one ever walked away from him. Not board members, not partners, not anyone. But she did, and it bothered him more than it should have. He told himself it was about discipline, authority. It wasn't. It was the way she looked at him before leaving, not with anger, but disappointment. For the first time, Nathan Hale, the man who feared nothing, was afraid of losing something he couldn't define. Hours later, he found her in the lobby, ready to leave. You don't quit without telling me, he said. I wasn't quitting, she replied, meeting his gaze. I was breathing. Her voice trembled, but her spine stayed straight. You think power gives you the right to treat people like they are disposable, but not everyone's afraid of you. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. For once, Nathan Hale was speechless. She turned to go, but he stepped forward, blocking her path, not with force, but with honesty. You're right, he said finally. I don't know how to stop fighting everything, even the things I care about. The confession surprised them both. The city lights reflected in her eyes, soft, unsure, forgiving. Then maybe start by not fighting me, she whispered. And when she walked away this time, he didn't stop her. He just watched her go, realizing the battle had already been lost. Nathan had rewritten the message 3 times and deleted it twice. For a man who built empires with words, he suddenly had none that sounded right. He wasn't used to apologizing, not to employees, not to anyone. But Elena wasn't anyone. That realization struck harder than he expected. Finally, he texted 6 words, meet me at the cafe downstairs. It was the first time he'd ever asked, not ordered. She almost didn't go. Pride told her to ignore him, but curiosity, or maybe hope, made her walk through those doors. He was already there, in an uncharacteristically quiet corner, sleeves rolled up, coffee untouched. When he saw her, something softened in his face. You were right, he said simply. I cross lines I don't see until it's too late. She sat down, wary but listening. I wasn't asking for perfect, she replied. Just respect. He nodded, the tension between them shifting into something raw, fragile. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Say sorry, she asked. He almost smiled. No, trust people. His honesty disarmed her. For a man who ruled boardrooms, he suddenly looked human, tired, flawed, trying. Then start small, she said softly. Start with me. And for the first time, he did. He let his guard fall, even just an inch. When they left the cafe, rain had started again, lighter this time, more forgiving. Nathan held the door open, a small gesture but somehow monumental. As they stepped outside, their shoulders brushed, and neither moved away. The city around them buzzed with life, unaware that something delicate had shifted. It wasn't love. Not yet. But for Nathan Hale, who had once sworn his heart was unshakable, it was the first crack of light breaking through years of stone. The following week, the air in Nathan's office felt different. The tension had softened, replaced by something quieter, curiosity, maybe trust. When he told her he was flying to Boston for a 3-day business summit, Elena nodded, already arranging the itinerary. "You will need me to brief the team remotely," she said. He hesitated. "Actually, I prefer you come with me." The word slipped out too naturally, too easily. For him, that was dangerous. She blinked, surprised. "You want me there?" He met her eyes. "You're the only person who keeps me from burning everything down." The confession caught them both off guard. For a man who measured emotions in risk and return, this felt reckless. But when she smiled, just a small, knowing smile, he realized recklessness might be exactly what he needed. "All right," she said, "but I'm not pouring your coffee." "Wouldn't dare ask," he replied. The flight were quiet, suspended between clouds and unspoken words. He tried to focus on his presentation, but her presence pulled his thoughts off course. Every time she leaned over his laptop, the scent of her perfume tangled with his self-control. When turbulence hit, her hand brushed his arm. A spark, unintentional, electric. Neither moved away. The rest of the flight passed in silence, but their hearts didn't get the memo. That night, at the hotel, the city glittered through the window like temptation itself. Elena knocked on his door to deliver files, and for a moment they stood too close, saying too little. "Long day," she murmured. "You have no idea," he said. But he wasn't talking about work. The distance between them was shrinking, and both knew it. Something inevitable had begun, and neither wanted to stop it. The Boston trip changed everything. What was supposed to be business turned into proximity, long hours, shared silences, stolen glances. Elena noticed how Nathan's guard slipped when he laughed, how his gaze lingered a moment too long when she spoke. He wasn't the ruthless CEO the world saw. He was a man relearning how to feel. And she hated that part of her wanted to be the one to teach him how. During the final night, after the gala, the elevator ride back to their floor felt suffocating. They stood inches apart, her perfume mixing with the scent of his cologne and exhaustion. The soft hum of the city below filled the silence. When the doors opened, neither moved. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "You make it very hard to stay professional." She looked up at him. "Then maybe you're trying too hard." He stepped closer, then stopped. Control versus desire, colliding like glass under pressure. "If I cross that line," he said, "there's no going back." "Maybe," she replied softly. "You've already crossed it." The world outside didn't exist in that moment, just the weight of everything unsaid between them. But instead of kissing her, he walked away. It was the most disciplined and the most painful thing he'd done in years. Later, in her room, Elena stood by the window, staring at the skyline. She told herself she didn't care, that she was here for her job, not his heart. But when she saw his reflection in the window across the building, standing alone, staring back, she knew the truth. Something irreversible had happened. The line hadn't just blurred. It had vanished, and neither of them could pretend anymore. The whispers started small, a glance too long in a meeting, an elevator ride that ended in silence. People noticed. People always did. Elena tried to ignore it, but the looks from other assistants, the sudden quiet when she entered a room, told her everything. Nathan didn't help. He treated her differently now, softer in tone, sharper in attention. It wasn't favoritism. It was visible, and in a place like Hale Industries, visibility was dangerous. One afternoon, while delivering documents, she overheard 2 executives whispering her name. "He's done this before," one said. "It never ends well." Her stomach dropped. She wanted to defend herself, to shout that it wasn't like that, but she didn't, because maybe it was. Not the affair, but the connection, the pull, something real. And that scared her more than the gossip ever could. Nathan noticed a shift immediately. Her distance, the sudden formality in her tone. "You're avoiding me," he said one evening. "I'm working," she replied. "You're hiding," he countered. She met his eyes, jaw tense. "You're my boss. That's all you are." The words were professional. The silence that followed wasn't. He took a step forward, but she stepped back, every heartbeat a war she was trying not to lose. That night, alone in his office, Nathan stared at the reflection of the city lights on the glass. For years, control had been his armor, discipline his religion. But now, one woman, a woman he shouldn't want, had undone everything. He could survive the rumors, the judgment, even the loneliness. But the thought of losing her respect, that was the one thing he couldn't endure. And he didn't know how to fix it without breaking everything else. For the first time since she started at Hale Industries, Elena didn't show up early. Her absence was felt before it was noticed. The office felt colder, quieter. Nathan told himself it was irrelevant, that assistants came and went. But by noon, when she still hadn't replied to his message, irritation twisted into something closer to worry. He didn't like that feeling. It made him human, and being human had never served him well. When she finally walked in, he almost said something kind. Instead, he said, "You're late." She looked at him, eyes tired, shoulders heavier. "I needed space," she said simply. "Rumors don't die when we keep feeding them." He wanted to argue, to remind her that he didn't care about rumors, but the truth was, he did. Not for himself, but for her. "I never meant to make things harder," he said quietly. "You didn't," she replied. "I did." The next few days were unbearable. Meetings became mechanical, conversations shorter. The warmth that had grown between them froze into silence. Nathan caught himself glancing at her office door, waiting for something. A smile, a glance, anything that reminded him she was still there. But Elena had learned to wear distance like armor. Every time she looked at him, it felt like goodbye, and he hated how much that scared him. One evening, long after everyone had left, he found her working alone, light spilling over her desk. "You don't have to prove anything," he said softly. She looked up, tears she wouldn't let fall shimmering in her eyes. "I'm not proving anything," she whispered. "I'm protecting the only thing I still have, my name." Nathan stood there, speechless, realizing that in trying to protect her, he'd become the very thing she needed protection from. The tension between them had turned into gravity, invisible, inescapable. Every meeting, every glance, every word left unsaid pressed heavy on Nathan's chest. One evening, after a long board meeting, he found her waiting by the elevator. "You didn't have to stay this late," he said. "You either," she replied. The air between them was electric, fragile. For a second, neither of them moved. Then she whispered, "This isn't working anymore." He frowned. "What isn't?" "Pretending," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed her. "Pretending that this is just right. That I don't see you trying to be someone you're not." He took a step closer. "And who am I?" "Someone who's scared to need anyone," she said softly. "Someone who doesn't realize he already does." The truth hit him like a punch, sharp, undeniable. Nathan had faced shareholders, scandals, loss, but never this kind of vulnerability. He turned away, gripping the elevator's cold railing. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying," she said, her voice trembling. "And I know what I'm risking." The elevator door opened, but neither stepped inside. "You can fire me if that makes it easier," she added, almost a whisper. He spun toward her, eyes burning. "You think I could replace you? You've already ruined every version of peace I ever had." For a moment, the world went still. Then she said, "Then tell me what this is, Nathan. Tell me why you look at me like you want to stop time." His breath caught. Every instinct screamed to stay silent. But his heart, the one thing he'd spent years locking away, refused to obey. "Because I do," he said. "Because when I'm with you, I forget I built my life on walls." The words hung between them, dangerous and holy. She didn't speak. Instead, she reached up and touched his face, gently, like testing the truth of a dream. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch as if gravity had shifted. When he opened them again, everything was different. The walls, the rules, the fear, none of it mattered anymore. He took her hand, holding it like a confession. "You didn't just become my assistant, Elena," he whispered. "You became my reason." And for once, he didn't try to take the words back. The next morning, the office felt different, charged, fragile, alive. Elena arrived early, pretending nothing had changed. But every glance, every accidental touch told a different story. Nathan tried to bury himself in work, but his focus was gone. Numbers blurred. Meetings dragged. Every time he heard her voice through the intercom, his pulse betrayed him. The man who once ruled his empire with iron control now couldn't control his own heartbeat. By noon, the rumor mill was spinning again. A photo, blurry, taken at the hotel, had surfaced. Him, standing too close to her. Looking up at him. It wasn't damning, but it was enough. HR called. The board whispered. Nathan dismissed the meeting with a single sentence. "My personal life is not your concern." But it was. Every decision he'd made since hiring her now came under scrutiny. Power had its price, and he was finally paying it. Elena wanted to disappear. She hadn't signed up for this. The gossip, the stares, the judgment. She tried to resign, but Nathan refused to accept it. "You walk away, they win," he said. "It's not about winning," she answered. "It's about surviving." He looked at her then, really looked, and saw the fear behind her calm. "I'll protect you," he promised. But they both knew promises in his world broke faster than glass. That night, she packed her desk in silence. He found her there, the city glowing behind her like an accusation. "You're not leaving," he said, voice low, steady. "I have to," she whispered, "before this costs you everything." "You already have," he said, not in anger, but truth. His eyes softened. "And I'd do it again." The words trembled in the air, beautiful and dangerous. She wanted to believe him, but the world outside didn't care about love. When she stepped into the elevator, he didn't stop her this time. He just stood there, watching as the doors closed, the hum of machinery masking the sound of something breaking. For a long time, Nathan stayed in the empty office, staring at the skyline. Power, success, money, all of it fell hollow now. Somewhere in the city below, Elena Morales was walking away. And for the first time in his life, Nathan Hale realized what it truly meant to lose. Days turned into weeks, and Hale Industries felt colder without her. Nathan threw himself into work with ruthless precision, but no amount of success filled the quiet she left behind. He stopped drinking coffee. His had always been better. Stopped staying late. The silence was too loud. Every room echoed with her absence. Even his reflection in the glass seemed to ask the question he'd avoided. Was it worth it? Elena found a new job at a small publishing firm across town. The hours were lighter, the people kinder, yet she felt like she was living half a life. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart leapt and sank when it wasn't him. At night, she replayed their last conversation, his voice breaking on the words, "I'd do it again." Maybe that was a problem. They both would. Love hadn't destroyed them. The world had. Nathan tried to move on. Dates, dinners, polite smiles, all meaningless. None of them laughed like she did. None looked at him without fear. When he walked by her empty office, he caught himself stopping at the door, as if expecting her to look up and say, "You're late." That ghost of her voice followed him everywhere, not haunting, but reminding. Some losses, he realized, don't fade. They settle like rain on stone. Then, one evening, he saw her again, by chance, on a crowded street. She was carrying a stack of books, her hair swept by the wind, her laugh soft and real. He froze. She didn't see him at first. But when she did, everything stopped. No one else existed. Not the crowd, not the city. Just them, standing in the same world, but on opposite sides of everything that mattered. She smiled politely, the kind reserved for strangers, and walked past him. He didn't move, didn't call her name. Some part of him knew that love wasn't about possession. It was about survival. And if he truly loved her, maybe he had to let her go. But as a figure vanished into crowd, Nathan Hale understood the coolest part of silence. It doesn't mean you've stopped loving someone. It means you're loving them alone. It had been 6 months since she walked out of Hale Industries, and Nathan had learned to live in fragments, routine without meaning, success without joy, until the day her name appeared again. A merger proposal. Hale Industries would be partnering with a new firm for a literacy initiative. The contact listed Elena Morales. For a moment, he thought it was a cool joke. Then he saw her signature at the bottom, real, steady, familiar. When she entered the conference room, the air shifted. Time didn't rewind, it simply paused. She looked different, calmer, confident, but her eyes, they still held the same quiet fire. "Mr. Hale," she said, polite, formal. The title sliced deeper than he expected. "Miss Morales," he replied, matching her tone, failing to hide the tremor in his voice. Every word was a battle between restraint and memory. The meeting went flawlessly, at least on paper. But underneath the calm, every glance carried unfinished sentences. When the others left, he stayed. "You've done well," he said finally. "So have you," she replied. A pause. "I didn't think I'd see you again." "I didn't think I'd survive it," he admitted quietly. She froze, heart racing. He still spoke the truth like a confession. Sharp, simple, sincere. And she still wasn't ready for it. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, familiar. She stood by the window, watching it trace the glass, remembering another night, another storm. "We can't go back," she said. "I'm not asking to," he answered. "I just want you to know. I never stopped." The words broke something in her carefully rebuilt calm. She turned to him, tears threatening to undo her resolve. "And what if I did?" she whispered. "Then I'd love you anyway," he said. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything they hadn't said. The rain softened, the city lights blurred. For the first time, she didn't run. Nathan didn't reach for her. They just stood there, two people still learning how to exist in the same world again. Maybe love wasn't about fixing what was broken. Maybe it was about standing in the wreckage and choosing to rebuild one breath at a time. Elena told herself she could handle it, that working with him again was just business. But every meeting chipped away at that lie. Nathan had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something quieter, heavier. He still looked like power in a tailored suit, but his eyes carried humility now, regret, and something she couldn't name. When he spoke to her, it wasn't like before. He wasn't commanding her anymore. He was asking. One night, after a late presentation, they found themselves alone in the elevator again, just like before. "You've rebuilt everything," he said softly. "You should be proud." "I am," she replied, but her voice wavered. "Then why does it sound like you're still running?" he asked. She turned toward him, anger flashing through her composure. "Because you were the fire, Nathan, and I barely made it out alive." He stepped closer, but this time with gentleness. "Then maybe I learned to burn differently," he said. The words were simple, but they hit deep. For a man who once used ambition to replace emotion, this version of him, patient, vulnerable, was disarming. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "Just a chance to show you I'm not the same man who let you walk away." Her heart ached with every beat that said she still loved him. The next day, she stood on the rooftop terrace of her new office, staring at the city below. She'd built something real, a life not defined by anyone else's name. But every success felt incomplete, like a song missing its last note. Nathan had been her chaos, her risk, her undoing, but also the first person who ever saw her worth. And now, he was asking her to see his. The decision felt like standing at the edge of everything. That evening, she went to him. No words, no explanations, just presence. He looked up, surprised, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. "You said you didn't want forgiveness," she whispered. "Good," he said, stepping closer. "Because I don't deserve it." "Then what do you want?" she asked. His answer was quiet, but certain. "You." And as she closed the distance between them, Elena realized some choices aren't made. They are surrendered to. Months later, Hale Industries looked different. The glass walls were warmer, the silence softer. Elena didn't return as an assistant. She came back as a partner in the new foundation they built together. Their focus shifted from profit to purpose, from power to people. Nathan learned that strength wasn't about control, but care. And Elena, she learned that love didn't have to cost her identity. Together, they found balance, something both had feared was impossible. Their story didn't unfold in grand gestures, but in quiet moments. Morning coffee shared before meetings. Late-night calls that ended in laughter instead of arguments. He still worked too much. She still worried too little. But they met in the middle now, the place where two imperfect people finally stopped running from what hurt and started healing from it. Sometimes, love isn't the beginning or the end. It's the steady rhythm in between. One evening, they stood on the same rooftop where she once questioned everything. The city shimmered below, alive with possibilities. "You ever think we were meant to meet that day?" she asked. Nathan smiled faintly. "No," he said. "I think we chose to keep finding each other, even when we shouldn't have." She laughed softly, resting her head on his shoulder. "That sounds a lot like fate." "Or faith," he murmured. Rain began to fall, light, forgiving, familiar. He reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "You saved my company," he said quietly. "You saved my life." She looked up at him, eyes full of warmth. "No, Nathan," she whispered. "You saved your own. I just reminded you how." The wind carried their laughter across the rooftop, the city lights flickering like stars that finally stopped running. As the night deepened, he pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I used to think love was a weakness," he said. "Now?" she asked. "Now I know it's the only thing that ever made me strong." The rain softened, the world held still. And in that stillness, where ambition met forgiveness and heartbreak met peace, Nathan Hale finally found what he'd been chasing all along. Not success, not redemption, home. Sometimes love doesn't arrive when we're ready. It shows up when we've already built walls too high to climb. Nathan thought he was hiring an assistant, not meeting the one person who would change the rhythm of his life forever. And Elena, she learned that strength isn't just standing alone. Sometimes it's having someone who stands beside you. What about you? Do you believe love can truly change a person, even one who's afraid to feel again? Have you ever met someone who challenged your idea of who you thought you were? Share your story in the comments. And if this one touched your heart, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because somewhere out there, another story is waiting to remind you that love can still surprise you.